All right, 2 more minutes, so just sit back and relax. Thank you for your patience. All right, hi everybody. We're gonna go ahead and get started. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to come and attend today's workshop. It is a workshop that is going to do with college essay writing, and our goal here is to be confident presenting a memorable college admissions essay. So just to give a little bit of background of myself before we move forward, my name is Lauren Cristobal. I am a senior counselor here at Plexuss. I used to work as a high school educator for the past 5 years. I taught English, I taught AVID, and I also had other roles in the education field as well. But I'm here today so that you can take some valuable knowledge with you after today's workshop. So hopefully you saw that there is a chat. So if you'd like to participate, you can either use your microphone, or if you're not comfortable doing so, you can also participate through the chat. That also works for us. Feel free to ask questions. I may not be able to respond to them right away, but if you type them in the chat, then I will address them, and we'll of course take questions at the end. I just hope that you are open-minded, and hopefully you will take something that's valuable and relevant to you at the end of today's workshop. So thank you again for your participation and for your attendance today. All right, a couple announcements before we begin is that this is only one of many workshops that my counselor on Plexuss provides for its students. And so we really do encourage you to spread the word about future workshops with your friends and support them with their future successes as well. And so if you especially like this workshop and you think that your friends will also benefit from it, we're holding the exact same workshop again next Wednesday, same time, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Mountain Time, and 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And then the second workshop that we're going to offer is how to request for a letter of recommendation. If any of you have ever heard of a brag sheet, we'll talk about that and how to complete that as well. Who are the best people to ask? And that's going to be on Thursday, November 21st. Same time, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Mountain Time, and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Before you attended the workshop, we encouraged you to sign up and download the Plexuss app. And so if you haven't done that already, then we really encourage you to do that after this workshop. I am also the person behind my counselor. So if you have any questions about your college application, financial aid, anything to do with your higher education journey, then you can reach me there. And if you have the app, then you get instant notifications when you have that. If you like your experience, we do appreciate your feedback. So please do rate and review us in the App Store or in Google Play. We encourage constructive suggestions. If you had a positive experience, whether that's today during the workshop or your experience on Plexuss, then we really welcome you to provide that feedback for us. All right. So just to clarify, the objective of today is that by the end of the workshop, you will walk away with hands-on experience of writing and cultivating personal ideas for creating an essay that is authentic, powerful, and make your essay get noticed. We want to expand the focus of stories and experiences. We want to acknowledge that many of our experiences add up and influence the person we are today. And we also want to ensure our authentic selves also align with the prompt being asked. So bottom line, we want you to understand that you yourself have many experiences and stories that are worth telling and will make you a memorable person. And secondly, we want to make sure that the essay that you write directly answers the prompt that's being asked of you to respond. Hopefully, as you are all seniors, I'm assuming, you will have different prompts to answer, whether that's a common application or a UC application, but a lot of these prompts do have commonalities, which we'll see throughout the workshop. So I want to open with this question, and feel free to speak through your microphone, or you can also respond in the chat. But how many of you have been stumped when it comes to submitting your college essay? And you can just simply put, me exclamation point in the chat, or, say that out loud as well. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Kara, for your response. I'm sure that even though you may have not responded, then maybe this also applies to you as well. And if not, then that's a really good thing too, because then, you're ready to confront your prompt and begin writing. I do want to share with you this excerpt from John F. Kennedy's application to Harvard. He says, "The reason I have for wishing to go to Harvard are several. I feel that Harvard can give me a better background and a better liberal education than any other university. I've always wanted to go there, as I felt that it is not just another college, but is a university with something definite to offer. Then too, I would like to go to the same college as my father. To be a quote unquote Harvard man is an inviolable distinction, and one that I sincerely hope I shall attain." In this excerpt, the only thing that we really know about John F. Kennedy is that his father went to Harvard, but there's nothing really else here that tells us who John F. Kennedy is, what his background is, what his story is. And so what I want to mention here is that, people who are historical figures and who we deem as important aren't natural born writers. And so if you are struggling to begin your essay or you struggle to write, it's not something that's natural. It's something that takes practice. And so hopefully this will encourage you that you'll get to a point, as long as you practice, to submit a college application essay that you feel confident submitting. Here again, I'm going to have to hear from you. You can type in the chat or speak through your mic, but it doesn't have to be specifically college essays, but what are your strengths when it comes to writing an essay? What are things that you're good at when you have to write an essay? Math, okay, I hear math and analytical topics. Could we hear from one more person? What are some strengths that you have when it comes to writing an essay? As you're thinking, I do want to expand on Mary's response. And so even though math is a subject that deals with numbers, Math and essay writing is a lot of an analysis, and so those two skills go hand in hand with each other. Could we have one more person share? What's a strength that you have when it comes to writing? We can move on. How about things that you can improve on? Oh, I see in the chat. Thank you so much, Kara. I see writing about personal experiences. So sometimes for some people, it's really easy for you to talk about yourself. So that's going to definitely help when it comes to writing your college application essay. How about areas of improvement? What are things that you can get help from, or things that you struggle with? Improving not to be too wordy. Yes, sometimes instead of being concise, we tend to over-explain, or sometimes our points, the point of what we're saying is missed because we end up being too excessive in our writing. And some of us might not feel creative enough, right? When we approach an essay, we don't know how to start. We don't feel like we're good writers in the first place. And so how am I supposed to be original? That might be something that we struggle with. And I also see, yeah, maybe some of us are like Mary, and we like practical, pragmatic information, right? We like to know step 1, step 2, and step 3, and sometimes writing isn't necessarily taught to us that way, or that's not how we approach it. And so instead, it's this blank slate, and we have no idea how to start. So hopefully with today's workshop, you leave knowing that you're off to the right start, and you feel more clear about what you're being asked to do and the task that needs to be done, so that you can submit your college application with a very strong essay. So I'm going to show you in the next slide the directions that we're going to follow with the 3 examples that we're going to practice with. But essentially what we're going to do is we're going to look at 3 prompts. Some are from Common App applications, some are from the UC applications. And with those applications, you're required to respond through a piece of writing. So even though they're different, I think that you'll be confident when you follow these 2 steps. And so what we're going to do is we're going to break down the following college essay prompts. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to underline keywords that signal the type of response the prompt is asking for. So you want to underline terms that directly let you know this is what I need to write about. I would be completely off topic if I don't address these keywords in my personal essay. The second thing that we want to do is we want to identify the type of prompts from the following prompt types below. So typically, when you're asked to write a personal statement or a college essay, they usually fall between these 6 types. Even with scholarship applications and essays you have to write for scholarships, a lot of the time you're going to have to write about one of these 6 topics, which are my passions, my community, my work, my growth, my mistakes, and my struggles. Sometimes you'll have to talk about more than just one. So for some prompts, you might have to discuss your community and your work. Or sometimes you'll have to discuss your passions and your growth. Sometimes it'll be 3, sometimes it'll be 2. Normally, that's at most that it'll be. So let's look at the first one, and I'm going to demonstrate the first one for you before we practice with the second and third example. So the first example, the prompt asks, some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful they believe their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, then please share your story. So here, the first thing I want to do is I want to underline the key terms in this prompt that signals to me that I have to talk about this in order for my personal essay to be relevant. to what it's asking. So to me here, I think background, identity, interest, or talent is an important, term. I also want you to notice the word or. Some students might look at this prompt and think that they have to discuss their background and their identity and an interest and a talent. But if you look at the prompt closely, you only need to choose one. And you're not going to stand out more if you talk about all four. Actually, you'll be doing the opposite and not answering the prompt if you talk about all four. They want you to get specific about one of these things. The next term that shows that this is a key term is, I would say, meaningful. And I would also say incomplete without it. And the last thing I see is share your story. So those are the key terms that I believe that are important for this prompt. And I think that what it's asking me to write about is it's asking me to write about my passions. An interest or talent, right, is a passion. It's asking to talk about my community. If I choose to talk about my background or my identity, then the community that I feel like I belong to is something that I can talk about. And lastly, I think that it's talking about my growth. Maybe the interest or talent that you have, you know, when you first started out, you weren't as skilled in it, but maybe now you're a master at it. And so sharing your story would include how you grew within that interest or talent, or how you might have embraced that background or identity when you did it before. All right, let's look at example 2. And I'm going to need your help with example 2. 1 second. It says, the lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. How did it affect you, and what did you learn from the experience? So you can talk through the mic or talk through the chat, but what are some key terms in example number 2 that signal that they're important and that you must write in your essay? Challenge. What else? Failure. Okay. What else? There's a lot. What do we need to talk about in terms of your challenge or the failure? Do we just describe what happened, or what are some key terms in this prompt that tells you what else you need to talk about? Later success, right? So maybe this challenge or failure led to later success. So we don't want to just talk about a challenge and then nothing ever happened afterwards, right? We want to talk about a challenge that led to something positive or led to success. Lessons. Right? We face a challenge, we face failure, but we have to talk about what we learned from them. What's the lesson that we got from those challenges, from that failure? Yes. Right? What did we learn? And there's a direct question here too, right? How do they want you to describe these lessons that you learned? These lessons that helped you become successful? Because if you look at the prompt is 2 sentences. And so we have a lot of key terms in our first sentence, but in the second sentence, what are some key terms that are there? Affect you and learn from. Awesome. Oops, sorry. Good work. to learn from. There you go. Thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and also underline setback. I mean, that's just another word for challenge or failure, but it is mentioned in the prompt. All right, and what do you think, or what kind of prompt is this? Out of these 6, I'll help you out. I think that there are 3. Which 3 from the prompt types below is this example?
Hello?
Hello?
I think it's my struggles.
Struggles? Yes, I agree with you there. Thank you. And what are the other 2? I see my growth and my mistakes. Yes, I think those are our other 2. Awesome. Okay, let's practice with just one more. So with our last example, the prompt says, think about an academic subject that inspires you. Describe how you have furthered this interest inside or outside of the classroom. What are our key terms in this prompt? What did I underline in this? Oh, so I see passions, yes. So we're going a little bit ahead, but I do agree that this prompt is asking about our passions. So I asked, how do we know, or what words in this prompt allow us to identify that this wants us to talk about our passions?
Inspires you.
Inspires you, yes. Thank you. What else?
Interest.
Interest, right? Okay. I think I'm going to extend that a little bit just so it's a little more clear. Further this interest. But interest, yes. Oops, sorry. There we go. And what do we need to talk about that inspires you? Yes, academic subject. Great. Is there anything else, or do you think we can move on to types? All right, well, Mary said that we need to talk about our passions. And so if an academic subject inspires us, then yes, it is a passion of ours. I think there's one more out of these 6 that we can talk about. Further this.
I think my community might be because inside or outside the classroom.
Yes. So the academic subject, especially if you further that interest outside of the classroom, then yes, you can be talking about your community because that could be relevant there. Is there anything else in terms of what kind of prompt this is? I guess if we're talking about furthering this interest inside of the classroom and what we have left, which one do you think aligns with that? Further this interest inside the classroom. I think it's going to be work. All right. So with that said, we worked with 3 examples and we're going to go into actually identifying experiences from your own life based on the underlying keywords and the prompt types that we identified. So that's why I asked for you to have either something to type with or a piece of paper and something to write with. This is what we've done. This is what we've underlined and the prompt types that we have identified. And so I want to give you 3 minutes. And so with every example, example 1, example 2, and example 3, try and think of an experience, a memory, a story that you can tell that aligns with each one. So at least one experience for one experience for number 2, and one experience for number 3. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. If you have any questions, then I am looking at the chat. Do any of you have questions before I give you those 3 minutes? All right. And also you can use the words when I, if you are, if you can't think of something right away, maybe using when I will inspire you for each one. So I'll put 3 minutes on the clock and remind you of time. And then let me know if you have any questions. One more minute. All right. Thank you for taking that time. So what we want to do now is we now only want to choose one, and we want to expand our narrative. So I want you to choose whatever experience you wrote for example 1 or example 2 or example 3. And I want you to just continue writing. So I do want you to write a paragraph or however much you can write, but don't think about writing in correct grammar. Focus on just letting your natural thoughts flow onto the page. And so pick one. You want to write more about example 1, example 2, or example 3. And you know, this is just a draft, so just let your thoughts flow onto the page. Again, if you have any questions, then I'm here in the chat. Mary did ask about example 3 and how does my work apply to that prompt. Let's just say that you have, you were really inspired by history and you furthered that interest by doing an extra credit project and presenting to the class, and that really engaged other students' interest in history. That can be just one example of how that can be my work. But again, choose one and I will give you 4 minutes. A minute and 30 left. All right, thank you for utilizing that time to write and to practice. I am going to need one volunteer to speak through their mic. And before we close, maybe just have just one person to share what they wrote so far. And can you just let us know which prompt you chose? Or you can just share which example you chose and what stories you might use for that example.
I chose the first prompt.
Great. And could you share either what you wrote or what stories you might use for that prompt?
I wrote a little bit. I said, I feel I wouldn't be me without my passion of performing, whether it be dancing, singing, acting, or playing an instrument. It's all I want to do in life. In a conversation with my mom about backup plans, I remember telling her that I'd rather do nothing than to not follow my dream.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that and allowing us to hear that you have a passion for the performing arts. And I do think that you're off on a good start for example 1 if you choose to continue writing for that prompt. Thank you. All right, so a couple things before we close today is there are going to be a couple things that you receive in an email after this workshop. In the email, there are going to be 3 attachments. One is going to be a handout, and I am going to talk a little bit about what's on that handout. There's also going to be a sample essay, and the sample essay is from a student who goes to the University of Minnesota, and he actually is writing to example number 1. So if you want a full essay for example number 1, you'll have that available for you. And then also, if this practice was useful for you and you think that you just need a little bit more before actually starting your real one, then there's also going to be a PDF in there where you can practice underlining more key terms and identify the type of prompt each prompt is. So a little bit more about the handout is a couple of questions or takeaways to keep in mind, after practicing this is, am I being asked about my passions, my growth, my work, my mistakes, my struggles, or my community? If there is one experience I really want to share, is there a relevant prompt that allows me to do so? And lastly, personal essays don't have to be dramatic, but is what I wrote enough for someone to understand who I am? On that handout are going to be some additional resources on Plexuss. And so besides the practice essay you'll receive in your email, there are actually a whole database of essays that you can look at on Plexuss. Students will say where they now go to school, and this is the essay that I submitted for my application for this school. So you can see more examples from plenty of other students. There's also another article in there for you. Besides just understanding the prompt and breaking it down, there are other tips for you when you write your college essay. And also the My Counselor part of Plexuss allows you that if you have specific questions, or if you have more questions about today's workshops, or you have questions specifically about your own situation, then My Counselor is there for you to answer all of those questions. And then lastly, there is an opportunity that we are informing you today. If you are interested in becoming a Plexuss ambassador, if you are interested in a career or would like more experience in marketing or public relations or in promotion, then being a Plexuss ambassador might be the right thing for you. And if you are interested in that, then you can email me. Just email me and tell me a little bit why you would like to be a Plexuss ambassador. And my email is there. It's also going to be on that handout with a little bit more information about being a Plexuss ambassador. And then lastly, we do want you, I'm just reminding you again, like I did at the beginning, is to just spread the word about our future workshops, support your friends. The more the merrier in these workshops. We know that it's the first one, so we really appreciate that you're here today. But if you know friends who are also in need of help when writing their college essay, then we will be doing this again next Wednesday, same time at 4 p.m. It does say that we end at 5, but it may or may not go all the way up to 5. And then next Thursday, we're going to talk about how to request for a letter of recommendation, how to complete a brag sheet, who you should be asking your letters of recommendation for. And that's going to be, again, next Thursday at 4 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. It did notify you in the email, but if you haven't already signed up for Plexuss, then please do download the app. My Counselor is readily available for you when you download the app. And if you have any feedback or would like to share your positive experience on Plexuss, then we'd really appreciate your review and your rating. But before we end today, do any of you have any last questions before we close? All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today, and I hope that you feel more confident and off on the right start when it comes to writing your college essay. So thank you again for your participation and for being here today. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. and hopefully see you next time. Bye-bye.